Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about the state of dice in 2025 because things have changed. I think it's really interesting where we are for the state of dice. All right, so first of all, let's. So I want to talk about this in context of the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo. It's called Page, and so the first page was last year, and that was page one, and then this is page two. That's cute. I get that. That's kind of, that's cool language, right? And so basically, um, there it's really quite fascinating. So, because I saw some things that I think deserve an updated talk about dice. Okay, so first of all, everybody's there. So first of all, people are playing Dungeons and Dragons at Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, and then there's three areas in the hall, right? And there's three areas. Yeah, it was Hall D. We were in Hall D, right? There's this big space, right? And so there's areas where you can sit down and play a game. There was a game library. There was, and it's board games. You could check out board games and play them. Actually, they did not have any type of extensive or even useful tabletop role playing game library, which that would have been cool. And they do have that at PAX Unplugged. That's totally okay. Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo is still scaling up. I get it. That's totally all right. I no no harm no foul there, right? They have these areas where you could sit down and play a tabletop role playing game. They have areas where you could do panels, and then they have the vendors, right? The market, right, where you could buy dice and you could buy miniatures and you could buy books, right? All the core materials. So let's talk about where dice are, okay, today. So first of all, one trend that is still huge, and I actually think it's bigger than it's ever been, is the ally dice, right? So every single booth had them, right? Like, hey, here's rainbow dice, right? And like the LGBTQ groups have done a great job of the LGBTQ does own the rainbow now. Now that's an unusual subject because I'm an evangelical Christian. I'm like, we gotta own the rainbow, right? Like, the rainbow means that God will never flood the earth again, right? But most people, when they see a rainbow flag, they're like, that's for LGBTQ pride. That's not a promise from God that the earth will not be flooded with water again, right? So LGBTQ wins over the flood people. That is a thing that's happened, right? That ship has sailed, right? The LGBTQ have defeated the evangelical Christians, saying, "Hey, rainbow means that God will never flood the earth again." But they're like, "No, it's LGBTQ pride," and they've definitely won. And this is a thing. I'm not kidding. Not a single booth did not have multiple different sets of um, rainbow dice. And I think the reason why is LGBTQ. Actually, I don't think that LGBTQ are the reason that people are selling these dice, because I think we're still at a space where LGBTQ are not. They're by percentage, they're not even close to 51% in America. I don't even think they're into double digits percentage wise. Okay, so you're not going to make a lot of money selling dice to LGBTQ gamers. In my humble opinion, where you really make the money there, and please correct me if anybody thinks I'm wrong here, is the allies. There are a lot of, and at Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, I saw a lot of ally tags on badges, right? So they were like, hey, I'm an ally, and that's a super simple way to clue people that you're either LGBTQ or you're an ally, right? And so and those dice, I think they really sell. And I did want to talk about that because, like, I really think that has been like the Hamilton revived the theater, the commercial theater excitement, right? But LGBTQ dice is a really big thing, and it's still big in 2025, right? So that's there, right? Okay. Next, one thing that's very interesting is absolutely no one is printing 3D dice, right? So I saw a lot of 3D print material at the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo in the vendor section. At least 8 booths had 3D printed material on their shelves to buy, right? None of them were dice. Okay. Now, I do think what's happened is, and I know this from Twitter. I love Twitter, and I think and so I saw a ton of very nice dice at Philadelphia Gaming Expo. Right. First of all, the nice plastic dice are running $20, $20, right? And the reason why is bog standard Chessex opaques and swirlies are $10. That seems now. Actually, for one good set of dice, and each player really only needs one set of dice, that's not outrageous. Now, these new colors, right, with the new, with super shiny, super smooth, super nice plastic dice, right, with new color patterns that were previously, that you really can't get from Chessex, those are costing $20 now, right? Now, again, I think if people were buying these for, to use as their dice for their for Dungeons and Dragons, that would be great. But I do think what's happening with this is there are, and there's a lot of evidence of this. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. People are not buying one set of dice to play Dungeons and Dragons. They're buying 30 sets of dice, right? And then they're making cute posts on Twitter going, "Oh, I never can stop buying dice," and I'm like, you really need to stop buying dice, right? So the reality, and so I think I think I saw a bunch of vendors who are selling literally the 25th, the 30th, the 35th, the 75th set of dice to a player who doesn't need another set of dice. They need another set of dice, like a hole in their head, right? But they did have beautiful, very smooth, high visibility. And that's another thing. I do think we've reached a point where most people understand that dice need to be really nice, awesome colors, but the numbers need to be hyper visible, and that problem is starting to get fixed, right? And that does make for some weird dice sets, because like I saw some like green, dark green, emerald green and light green, but with super high yellow, super high visibility pure white pure white numbers, and it does look odd, but you can read the numbers. And the reason why is I have stuck in my collection dice that are too nice to throw out, but that are like, these are hard to read, right? And I wish I had to, like, it's almost like the hat in Wicked. Like, I wish I hated somebody enough to give them the dice that I can't read, but I just don't want to do that. But I also just feel bad just chucking dice in the trash. But if you have a nice pair of dice and the numbers are not visible, you should chuck them in. I actually think they belong in a lake. I just don't have a heart to do it. That's my take. All right. So I was kind of surprised. And so there were a lot. Now, where are these vendors getting these super nice dice, right? Well, what's happened is you have Chessex, and then you have a bunch of groups that are making like super, really like specific, very unusual color patterns in dice that Chessex simply doesn't make, right? And there's a lot of companies now that are making these in bulk and then selling them to these vendors, and I think they're selling them at $5 to $8, right? And then these vendors are selling them off for $15, $20, $25 a pair. Okay. Now let's talk about the metal dice. I did see a lot of metal dice, and here you have a ton of metal dice. And what's my take on metal dice? I think they're a waste of time. I don't own a single pair. I've never bought them. And the reason why is, one, you can't roll them on the table normally. You have to have a tray, right? And then you don't even have to have a tray. You could damage the table even with a regular pad, right? So you need a very high-end, like Wormwood $100 tray. And I'm like, this is too much, man. I just don't like that. But man, that is still very much part of the market, and those are selling for $50 at the lowest, $150 a pair. And I know people who own multiple sets of metal dice, right? And I really feel like they're a huge waste of time. They take a lot of space because you have to put them in some special box, right? And then I couldn't believe it. I have a friend who actually owns. At first I was thinking, I was like, at first when I saw it, I was impressed. I was like, oh, that's cool. He has the 50th anniversary Dungeons and Dragons dice, right? Awesome, solid metal with a gold finish, and the exact gold that the logo is in, right? So you would think that'd be cool. Here's the problem. They're actually not readable. You could not read that. Like, I watched the person roll. You couldn't see the number ever. I was like, is that a 3 or a 13? Right? And so I think what was necessary is, I think they were designed the way the old dice were designed, where you would take a crayon and you would rub the crayon on it in black or in white or in red or in whatever you wanted, and then you would rub the excess crayon off. But the player who was owning them was too young to even know that crayon rubbing was even a thing, right? So I think the vast majority of 50th anniversary D&D dice, again, you can throw them in a lake. They wouldn't be missed. They can't be read, right? So the reality is, dice are still a huge part of the market, of the Dungeons and Dragons market. There's still a ton of money being spent on them, but I think the vast majority of that money is very unneeded. Right? Get this, I would even say this. I saw a ton of dice at Philadelphia area Gaming Expo. Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, the convention did a great job of making space for these vendors, and I was very impressed with the job they made for the vendors. But the vendors, they were selling a ton of dice that I just feel weird. I don't think any of them were needed there. And the reason why is, there are so many dice out right now, so many sets, and the vast majority of dungeon masters who are coming, but you just don't need all this, right? And I just feel like the vast majority of dice that are being made, metal, very unusual patterns, all this stuff, we just don't need this higher end of the dice market. And I think a ton of money is being spent on it needlessly. I think the vast majority of these sets are sitting in a drawer, never get play. And the reality is, if you didn't print another set of polyhedral dice for 20 years, the entire market would be fine, right? Like, I have 30 sets of dice, right? I could, and so what they should do is, like, the FLGS should be like, hey, if you get into D&D, I know you'd like to buy a set of polyhedral dice, but we'll hook you up with this person, and they'll bring you 3 sets of dice, right? And the only reason why is, I just don't believe we need to print another polyhedral set for 20 years. We're way overprinted on this, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider subscribing and have a fetch millennium.